The first time I met Jordan Keene, he didn't even look at me. I was standing in his office doorway, folder in hand, wearing the same navy button-up I wore the day I signed my hiring papers 22 years earlier. Jordan? He was already halfway through an email on his laptop, typing with one hand and sipping from a green juice with the other. Without looking up, he said, "You're way overpaid for what you do." That was it. No handshake, no welcome, no question. Just that line, flat and cold. "My name's Ray. I'm 53. I live just outside St. Louis. I spent more than 2 decades at Westbridge Logistics, most of it in operations. I wasn't flashy, never tried to be. I got there early, left late, trained people who got promoted over me, and didn't complain. I didn't golf with the execs. I didn't post memes on Slack. But when trucks stopped moving, when shipments vanished, when vendors got twitchy, I was the guy they called, until Jordan walked in. He was 38, fresh off some visionary leadership award, and addicted to buzzwords. Talked about innovation disruption like it was a religion. That day in his office, after the overpaid comment, he finally looked up, just long enough to say, "Your salary will be adjusted down 30% next cycle. Budget recalibration, not personal. Not personal." Before we go further, quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I stared at him, not in shock, just steady. He thought I was going to argue, fight, maybe beginning. But I didn't give him the satisfaction. I said, "All right." Then I stood up and walked out. That was the moment. I knew what he saw when he looked at me. Dead weight, a cost center, some old holdover from a version of the company he was planning to burn down and rebuild in his own image. But here's the part he didn't get, and never would. I wasn't angry because of the money, not yet anyway. I was angry because I'd given my time, my health, my damn weekends to a place that now couldn't even give me the decency of a conversation. That kind of disrespect, that doesn't sting, it ignites. He thought he'd put me in my place, but what he really did was light the match. The next hit came 3 days later. I got back from lunch, turkey sandwich in one hand, black coffee in the other, and my badge didn't work on the office door. Thought it was a glitch, swiped again. Nothing. I knocked. Zach opened it. Kid couldn't have been more than 28, wore loafers with no socks and a permanent smirk. He was halfway into my chair, legs up on my old desk, tapping away on a MacBook like he was trading crypto. He said, "Oh, hey, you must be Ray. I was told this space is mine now." I blinked. "Come again?" "I'm Zach, Chief Data Liaison to the CEO." He tapped his chest like I was supposed to salute. "They said I needed to be close to Jordan. You've been reassigned." I didn't say a word, just walked down the hall toward HR. Office was dark, everyone working remote. Typical. A security guy named Steve found me 20 minutes later, gave me a cardboard box and walked me to a folding metal desk shoved next to the janitor's closet by the south loading dock. Buzzing soda machine to my left. Smelled like bleach and mildew. No email, no meeting, no heads up. They even misspelled my name on the new placard. Roy Benson. Not even worth correcting? They cut me from senior ops calls the same week. Calendar invites gone. Instead, I started getting warehouse shift audits from 2 years ago and legacy fleet reports that hadn't mattered since Obama was in office. Useless busy work, like I'd been benched. But they didn't have the guts to say it. Zach, he got full access. Systems, project folders, analytics dashboards, even the templates I'd built myself. I'd catch him hovering near the shared drive, dragging files into folders with dumb names like exec master and top-level stuff. Once, he asked me what carrier delta metrics meant. I said, "It's literally labeled. Delta, metrics, changes over time." He blinked. "So like, changes in shipments?" I nodded. "Close enough." He smiled like I'd just given him state secrets. "Thanks, man. You've been around forever, huh?" Forever. Like I was part of the wallpaper. That's when I started logging everything. Every file he opened, every spreadsheet he renamed, every module he accessed without understanding what it did. I kept screenshots, backups, timestamps, stored offline, labeled clean. I didn't say a word, didn't push back. I let them think I was done, that I was too beaten down to care. Truth was, I was watching, calculating. One morning, I saw Jordan and Zach outside the cafe in the lobby, laughing over cold brew and a shared Google Doc like they were building a rocket ship. Zach wore a blazer that still had the tag thread on the sleeve. Jordan spotted me walking past but didn't say anything. Just turned away and kept talking. That was the day they pushed the team org chart update. I wasn't on it. Not demoted, not terminated, just missing. Like I'd never existed. I went back to my metal desk, opened my private drive, and created a folder called Final Insurance. Zach asked me later that afternoon if I could help him visualize transit delay windows for a pitch deck. I smiled and said, "Sure, you'll want the route deviation matrix, should be in the SOP index folder." He found it, used it, labeled it ZK delay model in the slide deck. Didn't know I'd buried tracking code in the template itself. A little fingerprint, just for me. They thought I was fading, that I'd go out quiet, but they'd forgotten what I did for a living. Operations, not ideas, not speeches, systems, control, flow. And what they didn't realize, everything still flowed through me, so I stayed late. Not to prove anything, not for the paycheck. Just to build the trap. They thought I was too checked out to notice the chaos, too old to care, too bitter to matter. Truth was, I knew exactly what I was doing. I'd start once everyone cleared out. Most nights that meant about 6:30. Zach never stayed past 5 unless there was pizza and a slideshow involved. Jordan practically sprinted to his Tesla at 4:45. I'd slip into the admin backend, cross-check activity logs, back up everything I'd ever touched. Templates, routing protocols, vendor flowcharts. Most of them were still mine. I'd built those systems when Zach was in high school. No one had ever replaced them, they just changed the colors on the dashboards and slapped new branding on the slide decks. I didn't just copy files, I audited them. Tagged every single node that couldn't be cross-verified without manual input. My input. These systems looked automated, but they weren't. Logistics isn't plug and play. It's duct tape and timing and people who know where the bodies are buried. And I knew. One night, I spent 4 hours inside the vendor chain matrix. The thing looked clean on the surface, clean enough for Jordan to brag about at board meetings. But I knew which contract clauses required human confirmation, which suppliers ghosted if your wording was off by even a sentence. Those gray areas, I flagged them all. Highlighted, saved, exported, and stored. I didn't hoard info. I safeguarded it. There's a difference. By week 3, I had 3 backup drives locked in a drawer at home, each one labeled like old movie DVDs, just in case. Training videos, safety modules, Holiday Party 2015. You'd never guess what they actually held. I backed up the internal training platform too, the one I'd helped build after the 2010 compliance failure. It had hundreds of custom walkthroughs and layered tutorials that only I could explain without a manual. If it went dark, no one under age 45 could get the system running again. And then I called Alonzo. He ran midline logistics out of Kansas City. Mid-size outfit and solid rep, aggressive growth strategy. We'd had lunch once back when Westbridge was still running clean. He'd asked if I'd ever considered jumping ship. I told him no. Now I left the door cracked. Didn't pitch myself. Didn't beg for anything. I just asked if the invitation still stood. He said, "You thinking about making moves?" I said, "Let's just say I'm prepping my options." We kept it light, just one call. But I knew from his tone, he was interested. Back at Westbridge, I doubled down. I mapped out the audit reconciliation triggers. Basically, which files needed my manual tags to stay compliant. There were dozens. Not because I was clever, but because no one ever bothered to learn the systems after I built them. That's what happens when companies chase speed over structure. They lose the thread, and the people holding it. Then came the final push. I was at my metal desk, eating stale almonds and reviewing cross-dock checklists from 2012, when Jordan passed by with a couple execs. He didn't stop, just pointed at me and said, "We've got some legacy drag, but we'll clean that up soon." Legacy drag. Like I was rust on the hull. I didn't flinch. Just clicked my mouse and opened the sandbox version of our freight allocation model, the one no one touched except me. I deleted 10 outdated supplier tags, triggered a system test, and confirmed the backups were clean. That night, I sent Alonzo a second message. Let's talk specifics. They'd spent weeks pushing me to the edge. Now they were going to learn what happened when the edge pushed back. 2 days after I messaged Alonzo, the company-wide invite hit our inboxes. Subject. All hands huddle, strategic updates. Time, 4 p.m., location, South Conference Room, agenda, none listed. Didn't take a genius to see what was coming. The room was packed, folding chairs dragged in, interns leaning against walls. Some folks looked nervous, others excited. Probably thought Jordan was about to unveil some AI-powered pivot to win the market. I sat near the back. Didn't bother with a notepad. Jordan walked in with his usual fake energy. Sleeves rolled to the elbows, hair perfectly styled, like a guy who spent more time in front of mirrors than freight boards. Zach followed, holding a tablet like he was guarding nuclear codes. Jordan clapped once. "All right, team, thanks for showing up. I'll keep it short. No small talk, no recognition. Just straight into it. We've been evaluating structure across verticals," he said, like he was reading from a podcast script. "Legacy processes are being consolidated. That means some functions will evolve. Others will be phased out." He didn't glance my way, not once. "In line with this, effective immediately, Raymond Benson's role will be dissolved as part of the modernization plan. 40 seconds. 22 years, gone in less than a damn minute." Zach was already tapping on his tablet, probably pulling my credentials in real time. No thanks, no handshake, not even a nod. Everyone else, silent. A couple shifted in their chairs. One guy looked down at his shoes like he'd seen a car wreck and didn't want to be next. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, said, "Been an honor," then walked straight out. Not fast, not slow, just controlled. The way I walked through every warehouse fire I'd ever put out, every budget freeze, every shipping nightmare that landed on my desk at 2 a.m., made it to the parking lot before it hit. Not grief, not even anger, just this cold, sharp slap of disrespect. That kind of public erasure doesn't feel like loss. It feels like you've been erased from your own life like you were never there. That's when it broke. I sat in my car, hands on the wheel, and let it go. Not a loud cry, just a deep, silent one, the kind that sits in your chest like a stone. I didn't cry because they cut me. I cried because they didn't even pretend I mattered. But that feeling, that raw, exposed wound, it didn't stay pain for long. It became focus, steel, fuel. By the time I backed out of the lot, my hands were steady again. I knew exactly what I was going to do next. They erased me in public. Now they'd find out what I'd erased in private. I didn't go home after they canned me. I drove straight to a diner off the 64, ordered black coffee, and cracked open my personal laptop. That's where the real work started. At Westbridge, I'd built in a silent rollback protocol years ago. It wasn't some malicious trap. Not then. It was designed as a disaster recovery function. If leadership tanked or a breach took down our logistics core, this rollback could freeze admin-level commands, force a manual reset, and protect vendor chains from corruption. Problem was, no one ever documented the dual auth process. One side was locked into the system's backbone. The other was mine. I still had time. The termination hadn't hit HR's processing queue yet. Jordan and Zach were probably still celebrating their modernization win with overpriced beer and nonsense buzzwords. I opened the sandbox environment, authenticated with the root string only I knew, and pushed the first key. Then I called Eric. He picked up after one ring. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. "I need the favor we talked about." Eric had been in IT with me since the late 90s. He didn't care for Jordan, barely tolerated Zach. And he owed me one for covering his ass during the network audit debacle in 2017. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Send the files. I'll sweep the logs tonight." I encrypted the rollback script and uploaded it in 4 staggered bursts to the secondary backup channel. It wouldn't trigger alarms, looked like a security patch. While that cooked, I pulled up my legal document, the one I'd been drafting the night Jordan called me legacy drag. Subject, termination of administrative liability and authorization and revocation. I listed every system I'd ever touched, every admin-level portal I had access to. I wasn't hiding behind anything. This wasn't sabotage. It was a legal severance of responsibility. I signed it, PDF'd it, sent it to Westbridge's compliance inbox, and blind copied my lawyer. Quick note before we continue. Where are you listening from today? At midnight, I flipped the final switch. Rollback engaged. The command didn't crash anything. Not yet. but it locked admin control from future edits unless two authentication keys were input. One was digital, the other was biometric, mine. I disconnected all my accounts, removed credential links from the internal dashboard, changed my cloud passwords, shut it down clean. By morning, I was no longer inside the system, but the system still depended on me. Eric messaged me the next night. Logs clean. Nobody noticed. Thanks, I replied. Last favor I'll ever ask. He sent a thumbs up and disappeared. Smart move. 48 hours after the rollback, the first freight routing requests started timing out. The dashboards didn't crash. They just looped endlessly. Driver allocations froze. The load balancing matrix wouldn't confirm entries. On the surface, everything looked fine, but nothing was moving. From the outside, it looked like Westbridge had hit a minor glitch. Internally, they were blind. The best part? I hadn't touched a single live order. The systems were still intact, but without my key, the functions behind those pretty dashboards were nothing but ghosts. Vendors couldn't verify load chains. Fleet managers couldn't track delivery windows. Zach wouldn't even know where to start. He didn't even know what half the labels meant. I wasn't stealing data. I wasn't breaking anything. I just walked out and took the light switch with me. By Monday morning, the texts started rolling in. Can't process orders. Delivery routes scrambled. Vendor access denied. Are you seeing this? They weren't from random employees. These were senior ops leads, people I'd worked shoulder to shoulder with for years. People who still had my number, even after I was cut loose. I didn't respond. Not yet. By noon, Jordan had called it an unfortunate back-end hiccup. Zach went on Slack and blamed an analytics migration bug. The real problem? Neither of them had a clue what was actually happening. The dashboard still loaded, sure, but nothing behind them worked. Routing protocols dead. Driver schedules stuck. Carrier modules completely out of sync with order tags. Vendors started flagging broken timestamps and withheld confirmation receipts. It didn't take long for the internal message boards to light up. Panic spread fast, then came the exits. 12 senior employees quit that week. No notice. No farewell lunches, just gone. You want to know the kicker? Every single one of them was someone I'd trained. The woman who stayed late with me during the 2008 downsizing wave. The guy who lost his wife and still came in during peak season because I promised I'd carry half his load. The two brothers who helped me rebuild the warehouse floor map after that inventory flood took out 7 racks. They weren't leaving the company, they were following me. Because while Jordan was out giving speeches and Zach was busy screwing up Excel formulas, I was quietly building something real. Alonzo didn't need convincing. He sent over the contract Wednesday afternoon. Title, Vice President of Operations, Bridgestone Group. Package, generous. Start date, immediate. I signed that night. Then I opened the file labeled Blueprint. Not the system backup. Not the fail-safe triggers. The people. I wasn't just walking in with fancy SOPs and clean vendor flowcharts. I walked in with the names, the strengths, the stories, the people who made the machine run. Not the ones who talked the loudest, the ones who showed up when it counted. And they came, one by one. Phone calls, quiet meetups, no LinkedIn updates, no announcements. Just quiet shifts in loyalty. Loyalty I'd earned the hard way. Back at Westbridge, freight was stacking up. Third-party drivers started rejecting hauls due to incomplete route data. Clients began demanding refunds. One vendor locked their account due to repeated access failures. Meanwhile, I was onboarding. New office, new team, clean slate. Alonzo let me build out my own division. No micromanaging, just results. He trusted me, not because of promises, because of proof. Back in St. Louis, Jordan was still calling it temporary. He had no idea that the collapse wasn't a glitch. It was the system recognizing who wasn't there anymore. By week 2, Bridgestone was already moving faster than Westbridge ever did. Alonzo had been waiting for the right engine to scale, and I gave him one. Not just the systems, but the people who knew how to make them work under pressure. We didn't waste time with strategy retreats or stupid vision boards. We built, we tested, we moved. The first client to flip was Baldwin Paper Company. They'd been with Westbridge for 11 years. I gave them faster load-in times, cleaner route visibility, and a direct line to my logistics manager, someone I'd trained from scratch. No brainer, they jumped. The second was Craymond Auto, big account, loud CEO. Used to love Jordan's slick presentations. But when orders started showing up late and data stopped matching invoices, they started looking for a grown-up. We answered the call. Within a month, 2 major clients were ours. Alonzo barely reacted, just nodded and said, "Keep going." Then came the fun part. Bridgestone had been eyeing Westbridge's fleet maintenance unit. Small team, solid equipment, undervalued, quiet deal, asset-only acquisition, no press, no parade. And guess who Alonzo put in charge of integration? Me. That meeting took place in a cold gray conference room at a third-party logistics site just outside Kansas City. 8 chairs, 1 water pitcher, no nonsense. Jordan walked in wearing the same navy blazer he used to strut around in like armor. But he looked different. Shoulders hunched, hair thinner, voice quiet. He sat across from me. Didn't speak for a beat. Just stared at the onboarding packet I slid across the table. I started going through requirements, fleet tags, compliance handoffs, transition of route maintenance logs. Straightforward stuff. He tried to act like it didn't bother him, didn't work. 3 weeks earlier, he stood in front of a room and erased me like I was some outdated spreadsheet. Now I was walking him through how to hand over what was left of his company. Zach, nowhere in sight. Word floating around was that he got canned. Unauthorized access violations. Probably poked the wrong system trying to fix something he didn't understand. Funny how that works. Jordan didn't ask questions, just nodded and signed what he had to. His hands shook a little. I didn't smirk, didn't gloat. That wasn't the point anymore. This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. Taking back what was mine, and building something stronger with it. After the fleet unit handoff, Jordan didn't leave, not officially. Bridgestone slapped the title Strategic Advisor on his nameplate, which is corporate for, "We don't know what to do with you, but we're not ready to fire you outright. No direct reports, no budget, no role in operations." He started missing meetings, showing up late, sometimes not at all. When he did, he looked deflated, not angry, not sharp, just confused. He'd hover by the break room trying to join conversations he used to lead. Asked the kinds of questions interns asked their first week. Once, he walked into a routing debrief and asked what a cross-dock scan threshold was. Nobody answered. He forgot names, called a VP Melissa when her badge clearly said Andrea. She didn't correct him, just walked away. Nobody leaned on him, nobody checked in. They didn't need to. People like Jordan only have power when people pretend they do. Bridgestone's board gave him a few weeks. Then came the redeployment offer. A remote role in Tulsa, managing truck inspections and maintenance logs. Salary drop, no team, no assistant. He took it, didn't argue, didn't push back. Just nodded and packed up. I heard from someone in finance that he was making $58,000. That's what they pay mid-level dispatchers. The same guy who told me I was overpaid. Now doing checklist work in a satellite office, probably trying to remember what half the acronyms meant. I didn't celebrate. But I didn't feel bad either, because in the end, you don't need to destroy people like Jordan. You just have to outlast them, and I did. I didn't rub it in, no emails, no smug texts, no "look who's winning now" speeches. At Bridgestone, I wasn't just the vice president of operations. I had authority, yeah, but more than that, I had purpose again. People respected the work, not the title. They came to me with questions that mattered, real problems, real trust. That's when I started backbench to boardroom. Wasn't an official program at first. Just a few warehouse guys who'd reached out asking how I'd done it. How I went from loading docks to corner offices. I booked a room on the 3rd floor, brought coffee, whiteboard, started walking them through career paths. Not fluffy advice, actual steps. How to handle performance reviews, how to ask for cross-training, how to track numbers like a manager. First group filled in a week, 10 guys. Mostly from small rural plants. One was a veteran who'd been stuck in mid-shift purgatory for 6 years. Another was a quiet systems tech who hadn't spoken up in a meeting since 2015. These were the ones nobody ever bet on. I did, because I'd been them. I knew what it felt like to be overlooked, sidelined, written off as just another cog. I also knew what happened when someone gave you the right tools, and then got the hell out of your way. Quick pause. Ever had a boss who actually believed in you? Let us know in the comments. The company backed the program within 2 months. Budget, resources, internal mentorship pipeline. We expanded it company-wide. My rule was simple. No shortcuts, no corporate fluff, no thought leader speeches. Just work, just growth. This wasn't about proving Jordan wrong anymore. This was about proving people like him don't define the story. Legacy's not about power. It's about who keeps moving forward when no one's clapping. And I was building something that would outlast applause.